every consulting purchase is ultimately a leap of faith.
And
put it out there.
Yeah. And we just heard gasps and shudders all over the place because everyone wants it to be a logical decision, right? Like a purely logical decision. I told them this is what I was going to do. I was able to prove it in this way. I was able to demonstrate it, and therefore they purchased, right? Wouldn't that be great if it was just that straightforward?
And we hear this all the time. People go, our clients, et cetera, consultants, they go, I don't understand. I don't get it. They have a problem. I'm obviously a great fit. I prescribe this solution. It makes perfect sense, rationally, logically, intellectually. What's wrong with them? I don't understand why they won't pull the trigger. Here's why. No client can completely, comprehensively, 100% rationalize a purchase, mitigate every risk, and do complete due diligence. That is not possible until they go down the path with you and you work together and you get results. They will never be 100% assured of the results. There will always be doubt and there will always be risk. And therefore, in every consulting engagement, there's going to be a level of a leap of faith that the client has to take on as risk to engage with you.
Yeah, and what can be scary is if you are someone who really comes from that logical place, right? A lot of consultants are. They're coming from a very, problem leads to solution sort of mindset. This can be frightening because now it feels like you've got to be the flashy salesperson, right? Now it feels like you've got to sprinkle some magic over your offer so that people will buy in. And I think what we want to talk about today is how you can help people get to the place where they can make that leap of faith in a way that doesn't feel scary and that feels authentic and that feels like is something that, fits into the kinds of conversations you're having with your prospects.
Yeah. And I think it's fascinating that some of the common solutions to this or things that people think they need to do are, well, I need more case studies. Mm-hmm. I need to show them more data. I need to be more convincing. I need to do a better job of overcoming objections. Like the common thinking is I need to help them rationalize this further. Whereas, could that help? I mean, case study's never going to hurt you. I love a good case study as much as the next person, right? It's always a good thing. But if there's some doubt that remains in the client's mind, despite a fairly rational, logical presentation, is a case study a guaranteed way to help them overcome that doubt? Probably not, because that case study is not them at the end of the day, right? Mm-hmm. It's still another client. And so they could very easily go, well, I can see how it worked for that client, but maybe not us. Yeah. And I think the intangible thing that I'm going to present, to folks today that really makes the difference, that no amount of data or rationalization can provide, is how confident are you as the consultant that you can help the client solve their problem and get the results you're looking for? Like, what is your genuine, honest, not something to fake or feign. What is your genuine, honest level of confidence and belief that you can help this client get the results that they want to get? The stronger that belief, the stronger that confidence, the more deals you're going to win. Plain and simple.
Yeah, and my hope is that people hearing this, the ones that gasped a minute ago, now have a big sigh of relief, right? Because this is exactly why you're in this business, right? This is exactly why you do what you do, because you know that you can solve these problems, right? You know that faced with the kind of problem that's within your area of expertise, that you are in fact the best one to resolve it. And so what this means is that you simply, we'll talk about what it means to, what simply means, but what you need to be able to do is just convey that to your client. And so it's not about being a different person. It's not about doing two separate things, right? Giving them the logic and then helping them make this leap of faith. It's about weaving into your conversations with them and showing them during those conversations the kind of confidence that you have. And so a lot of this, comes from simply the way you speak about things, what you choose to talk about, but it really does live within the expertise that you already have as a highly skilled consultant.
Well, let's start there, right? Where do consultants typically not have confidence? I think there's a few things that you pointed out that alluded to it. Number one is if you're trying to do work outside of your area of
Mhm.
expertise or that's kind of tangential and you don't have a ton of experience, then you can't really fake that. That lack of confidence is going to show, which to me really is the argument for strong, narrow, focused positioning.
Mhm.
Because the more experience you have within a particular domain, target market, client problem, scope, etc., I don't care who you are, the more confidence you're going to have, right? If you're sitting in front of a client and you've never really done something like what they're trying to do or what they want to do, you can be the most confident person in the world, but it's going to be hard to manufacture that kind of confidence in the moment versus if you've done 10 engagements just like that one and have the stories to tell from them, you're going to naturally be more confident about the project.
Yeah, I want to add to that though, because I think you're absolutely right, and also you've got to be confident to get that first engagement, anyways, right?
Sure.
And so I think there's also just here, an opportunity to recognize your confidence, the confidence that you have in your ability to solve problems, right? So even if you have not exactly done the thing that they're asking, but you've certainly done a lot of things like it, or you wouldn't be a consultant in this area to start with, you know, understanding that you're a person who can solve those issues. You're a person who can, shift focus if you need to. You're a person who can solve the problems, I think is also just as critical, so that you're not entirely caught up in the specifics of I've done this before, so I can, apply it in a cookie cutter way to what the next client is bringing to me, but that you can, truly solve the problem that will be placed at your feet. And this is really about having confidence in the process, right? Confidence in what you do, confidence in how you do it.
You just gave away your Canadian credentials right there. Process.
Process. I'll say it
A very
till the end of
Canadian way to
time.
say process. Yeah, 100%. And I think that's going to be something that people struggle with here is, Ahmed, Carrie, like, results are risky, right? There's challenges, there's risks that we're going to face in executing a project that are going to shape the results. I can't claim to have full control over the results, and that's perfectly fair. But what you can claim to have and draw confidence in is your ability to execute on a process, your process. I mean, so I
Mhm.
think, number one, there's confidence in the process you've prescribed. And that we call this, in our program, we call this the results mechanism, right? You want to have confidence and be able to project confidence in your very specific process, mechanism, methodology, and your execution of that. And then pair that with a really clear communication with the client about what they need to contribute. A question that we often get asked from prospective clients is, I get your thing. I get what you guys do, client clarity, power positioning. I get it. It makes sense. I get that you've done it a lot. I get that you have a lot of case studies. What do you need to see from me to make me a good fit for this? Like what are the qualities or the characteristics of a good client for you? So we have that conversation. Like we can do our part here and we're really good at it. We've done it a lot. But to get results, we've got to do our part and you've got to do your part.
Mhm.
And so that's a conversation that really builds a lot of trust with clients, right? Because clients, the smart ones, understand that you can't parachute in and just get them results just like that on your own. It's going to require a level of collaboration and partnership and working together. The consultant has to contribute their part, the client has to contribute their part, and if those things are done well, then results can be attained. And most good clients will welcome a conversation around what is their contribution to the process, and that's going to build their confidence in your understanding of what's actually required to get results.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting on that is or about that is that there are two. What you're calling out is there are two things that clients need to have confidence in, right? One is what you're going to bring to the table, and the other is what they're going to bring to the table. And what you may find is their objective is much less about what you're bringing to the table and what they're realizing or intuiting or, getting to understand is that they won't be able to bring to the table what they need to do to make this a success as well. And it's important to understand that, right? It's important for you to know that before you get into an engagement. It's important for you to know that so that you can work through, both sides of that ledger, right? This is the process that we're going to follow that I bring into this engagement. And this is what's required of you. And, gauging the level of confidence in both areas is critical.
Yeah. Big strategic opportunity there, by the way, and something that we often help clients with in the positioning and results mechanism phase of our work is when those objections do exist and we uncover them via customer research, and the clients are not sure about the results because they don't know if they can contribute their pieces of the puzzle. What can you do on your end to better facilitate their work, and how can you integrate exercises or elements into your process that help them deliver on their end of the bargain and make it easier for them? That's often a big opportunity to make your offer, again, your results mechanism, as we call it, more palatable for them.
Yeah. And so, what we're talking about is the difference between confidence in the process and confidence in the results. And, just to put a finer point on it, trying to sell confidence around the results can be tricky, right? Because the client, as you said, they're smart people, right? They know if you're just coming in all sort of, blustery and making big promises about, I will get you X no matter what. They can see the faults in that. If you're explaining your confidence in the process, then, that's much more believable as well. It's going to be much easier for them to take on board. They're going to be less likely to try to find flaws in it because that's sort of your honest take, right? You do have this honest and authentic confidence in the process, which you quite frankly cannot have in results. So it actually tends to build this opportunity for the client to buy in a stronger way.
Yeah, it's like saying to the client, listen, I understand that this feels risky.
Yeah.
I understand that, you've tried to get results most likely in the past and haven't been able to do so. And I understand that all this feels risky. Let's boil it down to what's got to be done. Like, here are the things that have to be done in this sequence, in this matter, with this style, in this philosophy, with these beliefs to actually get results. And let's be honest about the risks that we're going to face and how this process here that I've designed and developed for clients who are just like you in this situation is going to mitigate some of those risks. Right. And then, I think just to boil this down to be a little bit more simple, it's, number one, this is easier to do when you're playing in your wheelhouse, right? And so this is, again, the importance of positioning and being in your wheelhouse where you have the most authority, even if it's early stage. There is a client or a circumstance or a market within which you have more expertise and therefore will have more confidence. That's really helpful. And the second thing that's very helpful is having some kind of a proprietary results mechanism, as we call it, or offer or solution that clearly, builds confidence brick by brick with the client so that they can, instead of, feeling, good or bad about results, who knows, they can look at the process and go, oh, I believe how going through this sequence of activities and these steps with this consultant will get us results. And they can come to a fairly rational conclusion there. And, and then last but not least, I think a conversation to be had here is, when clients challenge you on your process and they challenge you on what you're prescribing, when they often will, do you bend, right? Or do you stick to your guns? And I actually had a client tell this story this morning when we were talking about this, that they had they had a client who wanted to go through half of their process, the back half of the process, right? And so all this stuff, I don't think we really need this, but this stuff is what we need. And, and our client stuck to her guns and said, no, we have to do the whole thing. And here's why. And it wasn't arbitrary. There was an articulation as to why the entire process is critical. We can't skip steps. And all that did was increase the desire and the demand for working with her, because she obviously has belief in her process, right? So the prospects will often test that belief by saying, well, can we not do this or skip this piece or change that? And the irony is, if you try to negotiate those things too much, you're just
Mhm.
walking right into their trap, and they're going to walk away anyways because you haven't demonstrated that you believe in your own process.
Yeah, and I think it's really important in those conversations not to take those questions or those proposal or counter proposals at face value, right? Because they're really, in most cases, not asking to redesign the process. What they're really trying to understand is if you believe in it, right? They may not even know that, but that's what they're looking for. They want to feel comfort, right? We all want to feel like we're being looked after. We all want to feel like the person that we're engaging with is the person who is going to take us across the finish line, and that they're going to pick us up and carry us and do whatever it takes. And I think it's important in those conversations to recognize that that's what's really happening. That way you can come back and you can respond in a way that creates that, you use the word authority before, that confidence, whichever word it is that you want to use, but inserts that, or it creates that feeling that you've got it under control, right? You're not questioning it. You don't believe that anything different needs to be happening than what you have laid out, that you are very clear that that is the path to the solution.
Well, it's a really good point, right? Because I think what's often being communicated when they ask these kinds of questions or present these objections is what they're really saying. And to your point, I think it's often subconscious. Is I get that you believe in this, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
So here's my challenge. Here's my objection. In other words, can you get me there?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a choice, right? Either you can articulate why your process is structured the way it is and why the sequence is designed the way it is and what are the consequences of that and the consequences of not doing it that way. And therefore get them to a place of belief, i.e. borrow your belief in the process. Or you can just bend. Say, oh yeah, we can just do it that way. And ultimately that does not get them to a place of belief. In fact, it deteriorates their belief in you and your process.
Yeah, and you use the phrase, can you get me there? And I think that's really telling, because if you walk into a conversation with a prospect, right, someone who is going to potentially work with you, it's important to understand that what they want out of this conversation is for you to give them that confidence, right? They want you to get them there. It may not feel that way because they're kind of poking away at what you're telling them. They're, asking the difficult questions. They're doing all these things, and it could make it feel like they want to really push back. But I would argue that deep down inside, what they want is they truly want, right, for you to give them the confidence, right, for you to help them take that leap of faith. You wouldn't be in conversation with them otherwise. And so, recognizing that can really change the way that you speak to them and give you a much higher success rate in getting people to that place where they sign on with you.
Think about a trip to the doctor, and I don't wish this upon anybody in the room or anybody listening, but if you get diagnosed with something kind of tricky and you're obviously concerned about it and you go to the doctor, and because it's something that's a little bit serious, you're obviously skeptical about treatment and you have a lot of questions about what's the right approach and what's the right path and what's the right treatment, what are the consequences, what are the side effects. You've got this natural, it's your health at the end of the day, it's important. You've got this natural understandable skepticism, but you want to be better. Right? You don't not want results, you want results. And what you're looking for from the doctor is, hey, present to me a path that's going to get me feeling better, resolve this issue that I can believe in, that I can feel good about, that I can develop some confidence in. You want the confidence, you want the belief, and skepticism is not proof otherwise. It's typically just comes with any kind of important exercise or when the stakes are high.